moon explodes. No warning, no alien death beam, no secret government conspiracy, no ancient prophecy. 1 second it's there, the next, boom! And suddenly humanity is looking at a night sky full of floating lunar shrapnel. At first, people treat it like a cool, once-in-a-lifetime astronomical event. Hey, check it out! The moon's broken, neat. But then people on Earth do what they do best. Freak out. Scientists scramble, governments panic, and doomsday preppers finally get their moment to say, "I told you so." Turns out, when you take a massive celestial body and turn it into thousands of smaller celestial bodies, those chunks don't just stay put, they start colliding, smashing into each other. And with each impact, they break into more chunks, which then collide and break into more chunks, and before long, it becomes clear. Earth is about to be on the receiving end of the worst meteor shower in the history of, well, history. Scientists call it the hard rain, which sounds poetic until you realize it means everything on the surface of the planet is going to be on fire. Within 2 years, the entire atmosphere will turn into a hellscape of burning debris, superheated air, and enough kinetic energy to melt continents. So what do you do when you find out that your entire species is about to be cooked like a rotisserie chicken? You panic, obviously, but after that, you run. Not on foot, not underground, not to some secret bunker in the Himalayas. No, there's only one way to escape planetary barbecue mode: space. Humanity has 2 years to get as many people as possible off the planet and into orbit before the world turns into a giant lava lamp. The result? The single most ambitious, chaotic, and desperate engineering project of all time. World governments, private companies, and the entire scientific community band together to expand the International Space Station, ISS, into something big enough to house a small population of survivors. It's like playing a round of Kerbal Space Program, where the stakes are literally the survival of the species. Every country throws whatever resources they have into the mix. Spacecraft get repurposed, modular habitats get cobbled together, and a new plan emerges: create a chain of orbiting structures called the Cloud Arc, where humanity can ride out the apocalypse and hopefully start over someday. But there's a catch. Well, several catches. First, there's only so much space and so many supplies, so humanity can't save everyone. The leaders of the world are forced to make brutal choices about who gets a golden ticket off the planet. Scientists, engineers, astronauts, obvious picks. People with useful survival skills? Absolutely. The super rich who pay their way in? Oh, you bet. The rest of the planet? Well, it's been real. Second, space is not a friendly place. The Cloud Arc plan sounds great on paper, but in reality, it's a bunch of hastily assembled tin cans full of nervous, undertrained refugees trying to survive in one of the deadliest environments imaginable. Microgravity weakens your bones, radiation slowly cooks you from the inside, and one bad collision with space debris turns your cozy little space pod into a very expensive coffin. And third, human beings are human beings. You can take them off the planet, but you can't take away their ability to argue, backstab, and completely mess everything up. The people who make it into space may have escaped the hard rain, but that doesn't mean they've escaped themselves. As the deadline approaches and Earth prepares for its final fiery curtain call, the survivors in orbit watch in horror as their homeworld is consumed in flames. The planet that gave birth to them, the cradle of all human history, is gone. What remains of humanity is now nothing more than a handful of people floating in a metal shell, clinging to life in the vacuum of space. But the story doesn't end there. It can't end there. Because the real question isn't just can humanity survive, it's can humanity stay human? The Earth is gone. Well, not gone, but it might as well be. The hard rain has arrived, and the planet is now a glowing, molten nightmare, a giant rock wrapped in an atmosphere of fire and ash. Down on the surface, whatever remnants of humanity stayed behind are gone. No secret underground bunkers, no last-minute escapes, just a dead world, cooling under a sky that no one will ever see again. Up in space, the last survivors of the human race are crammed into the hastily expanded International Space Station, now known as ISI, along with the scattered, fragile modules of the Cloud Ark. This should be a moment of unity, a shining testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. Instead, it's an absolute disaster. First off, the Cloud Ark was always a long shot. It was built in a hurry, slapped together with whatever materials could be launched before the apocalypse hit. The people on board, they were supposed to be scientists, engineers, trained astronauts, the best humanity had to offer. But politics got involved. National leaders pushed their own candidates onto the mission. Billionaires bought their way in. Social media influencers somehow made the cut. So now, instead of an elite team of experts working together to rebuild civilization, you have a bunch of untrained people freaking out in space. And just when things couldn't get worse, they get worse. Humanity's last home is an overcomplicated, underprepared mess of orbital habitats tethered together by radio signals and sheer optimism. Supplies are running out. Leadership is a disaster. And then, because this wouldn't be a proper space survival story without some good old-fashioned human treachery, someone decides that democracy just isn't working out. Meet Julia Flaherty, former President of the United States. Ambitious, cunning, and armed with the kind of political instincts that make cockroaches look easy to exterminate. She realizes that the Cloud Ark isn't just a space survival project, it's the government of humanity now. And she wants control, so what does she do? She pulls a classic power move, starts spreading doubt, rallying dissenters, and before you know it, bam! We've got a full-blown space civil war. If this sounds absolutely insane, it's because it is. Imagine you're floating in the void, completely dependent on fragile, failing machinery for survival, and your first instinct is to start a coup. But this is humanity we're talking about. If there's one thing we're good at, it's making terrible decisions at the worst possible time. The power struggle turns violent. Spaceships are sabotaged. Stations are destroyed. Key figures, including some of the most important scientists, are killed. The already fragile Ark system starts collapsing. Before long, what should have been humanity's last refuge is now a space graveyard. When the dust, or in this case debris, settles, only a handful of people are left. Just 7 women, floating in a battered chunk of the original ISS, trying to figure out if they even deserve to continue humanity's legacy. And here's where the book's title finally makes sense. Seveneves. 7 women. 7 Eves. They are the literal mothers of the future human race, but they're not out of the woods yet. Space is still a miserable, uninhabitable nightmare. There's no easy way back to Earth. There's no planet left to go back to, period. Their only choice? Build something new. And so, with genetic engineering, pure determination, and the last shreds of human ingenuity, these 7 women prepare to reboot civilization. That's right. The future of humanity isn't just about survival anymore. It's about evolution. Fast forward 5,000 years. Earth, once a burning wasteland of death and despair, has finally chilled out. The hard rain ended ages ago, and while the surface is still a mess, it's no longer an instantly fatal mess. And orbiting above this newly reformed planet, humanity, but not as we knew it. The Seveneves, those last 7 women who survived the orbital apocalypse, used genetic engineering to rebuild the species. Since 7 people isn't exactly an ideal breeding pool, unless you want your great-grandkids to start looking like medieval royalty, they tweaked their own genetics to create distinct, specialized bloodlines. Each of the Seveneves made choices about what traits to enhance in their descendants, leading to the rise of 7 vastly different races of humanity. And after 5,000 years of evolution, adaptation, and expansion, what was once a scrappy collection of survivors has transformed into a sprawling, spacefaring civilization called the Ring World. Picture an advanced, futuristic society living in massive, orbiting habitats, equipped with technology so sophisticated that Earth is basically a forgotten backwater. These people, our descendants, have fully embraced their engineered destinies. Some are physically superior, designed for survival and resilience. Others are intellectual powerhouses, masters of science and strategy. Some are aggressive, some are diplomatic, some are just built different. Humanity isn't a single species anymore. It's a collection of 7 distinct variants, all descended from those final survivors. And now, after millennia of exile, they're finally ready to return to Earth. But of course, this wouldn't be a Neal Stephenson novel if things were that simple, because when they do start sending expeditions back to the surface, they find something impossible. There are people down there. Let that sink in. The entire planet was supposed to be dead. Humanity had one shot to survive, and that shot was in space. So who, or what, is living down there? Turns out, not everyone who stayed behind perished in the hard rain. A small, insanely lucky group of people managed to survive deep underground, using hidden biospheres and advanced technology to ride out the apocalypse. And now, after 5,000 years, their descendants have adapted to the new Earth, building their own civilizations in ways that the orbitals never expected. And that's where the book drops the mic. We've got 2 completely separate branches of humanity, one evolved in space, one evolved underground, meeting for the first time in millennia. The spacefaring descendants of the Seveneves, armed with advanced technology and orbital supremacy, and the earthbound survivors, who adapted to an entirely different world. Neither side understands the other. Neither side trusts the other. And the biggest question of all remains, what happens next? Because if there's one thing humanity is really good at, it's making a mess of things. And now, 2 radically different versions of the species have to figure out if they can coexist, or if they're destined to fight for control of their reborn world. And that's Seveneves. A book that starts with the moon exploding and ends with humanity standing at the precipice of its next great challenge. It's a story about survival, about evolution, and about whether we can ever really escape our own worst instincts. Love science fiction and fantasy? Subscribe to Goblin Hammer for more quick book reviews. Thanks for watching.